Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 401 Files. It's an absolute pleasure, as I always say, to be joined by so many like minded people from all around the world. The reason for me sitting down during this video is to retell an experience that I had when I was a small child. And for some strange reason, I've had a lot of people asking me about this experience again all these years later. A lot of you on the channel will already know why I started getting involved with extraterrestrials, UFOs, the paranormal, etc. But for many of you new subscribers here, maybe a lot of you still unaware. So yeah, I've been getting a lot of messages asking me to point out the video where I talk about this. And the thing is, I spoke about this in bits in multiple videos. So to point you in the direction of one video where I tell everything in detail is very difficult. I'm not sure what's brought on the rekindled interest in my story or my experience. I'm assuming that is maybe the news articles that were recently published about me. Um, but here I am, and I'm going to retell it again for anybody that doesn't know. So, when I was growing up, when I was a small boy, I was maybe about 10 years old at the time. So, this was around 1997. And I was in the Cub Scouts. I was always a very avid outdoorsy child, really into camping, fishing, things like that. And so Cub Scouts was right up my street, fitted in really, really well, went through all my badges super quick. And yeah, I was just a complete little Cub Scout geek. And we used to go to this place called Snowball Plantation here in the UK. It's a really well known wooded area that's used by the Scouts and by the Cubs. You see, here in the UK, what we have is something called the Beavers, and that's kind of like the really younger age. Then it's the Cubs, and then the adults and elderly people is Scouts. So I was in the Cubs. I was like in that mid-age bracket, and we'd been at Snowball Plantation doing a weekend camp. And it was brilliant. I used to really, really enjoy it. We used to go there, we used to play lots of stupid games, learn basic bushcraft skills, and just camp out. And as a kid who's 10 years old, being with your friends in the woods, camping out in all weathers it was perfect for me. I loved it. I loved everything about it. Now the woods itself, there was nothing really weird that I can recall about the woods or that area. And as far as I remember, the actual camping trip itself, that was for the weekend, went absolutely fine. There was nothing there that I would say out of the ordinary. It was just like any other camp that we'd been on before. So it went really, really well, and it was at the end of the camping trip. We all jumped on a minibus and we was heading back home. And I remember that I was sat at the back of the bus with a friend of mine. I mean, this is a long time ago. You've got to remember, like, we're talking 1997, 98, somewhere around that time period. So I can't remember the names of these kids. I mean, they've all probably grown up and left York, where we all grew up, and they've got their own lives and things now. It was a long time ago, but I remember very vividly that I was sat at the back of the bus with one of my friends at the time, and the Cub Scout leader came to the middle lane of the bus and basically stood there and said, "We're going to stop for a wee stop, like a pee stop. If anyone wants to jump off, this would be a good time to get off the bus now before we set back off again." So me and my friend from the back of the bus jumped off and stood at the side of this road. It wasn't like it wasn't a little country lane. It wasn't some derelict, road in the back ass end of nowhere. This was a road with cars, going up and down, quite busy. It wasn't in the middle of nowhere by any means. And we stood at the side of the road. And as a 10-year-old boy, shoulder to shoulder, taking a pee next to your friend, it's a bit embarrassing. So I decided that I would move up this little embankment that was in front of me just to get out of the way a little bit. And I thought, I'll stand at the top of that embankment and I'll take my pee up there into the woods, like facing into the woods. And yeah, I went up this embankment. I stood there and I'm looking through the woods and I noticed that there was this little outbuilding. It was a little brick building um, that in my mind at the time, I was probably thinking was used for tools or something like that. It certainly wasn't big enough to be lived in. This wasn't like a house or anything like that. It was just a little brick outhouse, if you will. But like I said, it was all broken down, derelict, overgrown with ivy. There was bricks missing, and I could make this out through the trees quite easily. The woods wasn't that dense that I couldn't see this thing. And I remember vividly as well standing there and thinking, "Well, where's the rest of this building?" Like, if this was an outhouse that belonged to something much bigger, like a bigger house, well, where is that? And as I'm thinking this, I saw something move off to my left. Now, I say left, I'm saying that very, very loosely. It could have been left, it could have been right. That detail never ever stayed with me. But I remember looking through the woods in some direction and something moved. It caught my attention. And I looked over to where this thing had just moved. And what I saw very clearly was a being of some kind. Now, I don't want to use or throw around the word reptilian. A lot of people have said that that's what it was. And if you guys think that this was a reptilian after I've gone into details about what I saw, then that's what it was. But for me at this point, it was just a being, some kind of weird creature that was stood up on two legs and it was hunched over. It was green completely from head to toe. The color green was like an olive. It wasn't a bright green or a really, really dark green. There was no scales. This thing didn't have a tail. It was just a human. Um, in the sense that it was on two legs, had two arms and a head. Now the head was very, very small in comparison with the rest of the body, and the eyes were dark, very, very dark. And like I said, it walked with a stoop, and I can't really tell you right now if it walked with a stoop because it was trying to keep a low profile, or if it walked with a stoop because it was just so tall and dangly that that's how its gait looked. Um, but yeah, this thing saw me. Like I looked at it and I had a really good look at this thing. It looked back at me. It glanced up and looked over my way. We made eye contact for what must have been only a few seconds, but we definitely made eye contact. It put its head down and it carried on walking in the same direction as it was when I first spotted it. And my instant reaction at this point wasn't fear. It wasn't to throw my arms in the air and run back down the embankment onto the bus screaming alien. My initial reaction straight away was that this was a prank. In Cub Scouts, we used to always, oh, well, the Cub Scout leaders would often pull tricks, stupid tricks. Like one time they tied me to the flagpole with cling film. I've got a picture of that somewhere as well. And if I can find that, I will put that up. But yeah, just stupid little tricks like that. So that was my initial reaction that this thing was a prank. And so what I thought in my young mind was that I'll come back down the embankment, I'll jump on the bus, and I won't say anything. And in that way, the joke is on them because they've wasted their time, their effort, and I never even saw what it was that they planned for me to see. That was what was going through my mind at the time. So I jumped back on the bus. I went and sat down at the back again with my friend, and I waited. I waited and I waited and I waited, and nobody said anything about this tall green creature with a little head walking through the woods. And even at this point, I'm thinking, well, my mum will say something. My mum will mention this when I get back. My mum wasn't even on the camp at this point. She was, back at home. But for some reason, I tried to justify this in my head. And when she never said anything, it never got mentioned ever again. And the weirdest thing for me is that I completely forgot all about this experience. Completely, and when I say I forgot, I mean it wasn't even in my subconscious, it wasn't even like, it was there if I wanted to bring it to the forefront of my memory, it just wasn't there anymore for many, many years until I was about late 20s, early 30s, and I was at work one day, I was a parking host at this time, I was just working in an office in York, and it hit me, um, it hit me like it had happened yesterday, um, yeah, and it came flooding back to me, and I remembered everything, and at first I questioned it. At first I thought, "That can't be real," but I remembered absolutely everything. I remember standing there, I remember seeing this thing walk, and the way it walked, and the way that its feet pushed past these little white flowers that were coming up through the forest floor at the time. I remember the way it glanced up at me and the way that we made this eye contact, and, um, yeah, I remember everything. I remember getting back on the bus and the way that I felt, you know, feeling like feeling like I knew it was a trick. Like, I knew that I was being pranked, but being cunning enough and smart enough, or as I thought, to do the whole role reversal, um, the whole reverse psychology thing at my age, and I just jumped back on the bus and thought that that's what I was doing. And obviously now looking back as an adult, I know that that's not what happened. I know that I did see something that shouldn't have been there, and I think the reason I saw this thing is because it was just a chance encounter. You know, this was a complete random stop, at the side of a road. It was a really warm summer's day, and if this thing was a reptilian, then who knows? You know, I've had people say to me that they do come out on sunny days, because they need the sun, they need the heat, and it sounds like we just caught it off guard. You know, it probably I don't know how often it probably does that. It might be in that woods every other day, every day, once a year, who knows? But on this one occasion, it certainly didn't expect a bus full of children to pull up, and one of which would come running up the embankment, and that's what happened. That's what I saw, and yeah, I would prove that. I would prove that through a lie detector test. I would prove that through anything, any means necessary, because I know what I saw. I'm not sure what it was. I'm not gonna attach labels to it. I'm not gonna say this was a reptilian or this was, a grey or some kind of, I don't know what it was, but I've never seen anything like it before, and I've definitely never seen anything like it since. The nearest thing that I can find is on the internet, and it's the, representation of what humanoids would look like if they had, evolved from dinosaurs. There's like a little alien green creature there. I'm not sure of the exact name of this thing, but that is the nearest thing over all these years that I could find to resemble what I saw. Why it was there, I have no idea. What it was doing, I have no idea. Why I forgot, I have no idea. Did more happen to that story? Did I get abducted? Did it change or alter time itself? And the few minutes that I was stood there was actually longer. Who knows? I don't have any answers to these questions, and I wouldn't like to try and make things up or exaggerate anything, but that is exactly as it happened. Um, and I wish I did know more. You know, I've thought about doing hypnotic regression. I've thought about trying to find someone that's trustworthy in the field. Um, and that won't ask too much of me. I don't wanna give too much away when I go see someone. I want that to be completely random as well, to the point where they don't know why I'm there, almost. And I just want them to do their thing and try and draw from me any more details from that day that they possibly can. And if something comes out, then I'll know it's not a fake. I'll know this person's for real, and, yeah, this event really did happen. But that's how I got into this, guys. But before that as well, I was already going through a lot of stuff in the house that I grew up in. A lot of you know that I grew up in a haunted house, really active with poltergeist activity. So I was already having my mind open. I was already experiencing things at home, as well as the rest of the family members, as well as friends of the family. We was all experiencing really, really bizarre and terrifying poltergeist activity. But yeah, I'll save that for another day. I'll save that for another video. For all of you guys that have been asking for me to retell my story as to what I saw in the woods that day, hopefully this has answered a lot of your questions. You know, the paper's twisted things. I think one newspaper article actually said that I've got photos to prove it. I think the headline read something like UFO expert, which I wasn't keen on. I don't know why they put that. There's no such thing as a UFO expert, but the headline read, "UFO expert sees 6-foot green aliens," not alien, aliens, and has photos to prove it. And that's just not the case. I saw one creature. I never used the word alien. I said I think I believe I said it looked otherworldly to me, which I'm guessing that most people listening to this would agree. Um, And I never said that I've got photos ever. You know, that came later on in the conversation. They said, "Oh, well, when you get out there, Ben, do you go looking for these things and do you take pictures and videos?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I do take pictures and videos when I get out there." But we're talking, I was 10 years old, like I've said, 1997. I'm not looking at landmarks. I'm not thinking, "Right, where the hell was this place that I stopped that day?" Because my mind just wasn't thinking like that. You know, I was on the back of the bus having a good laugh with my friends. The last thing I was thinking about is that in a few minutes, my life is probably gonna change. I'm gonna have an experience that will steer the direction of where I go in my life, and then maybe I should be looking at things around so I can come back here at a later date. I wasn't thinking like that. But anyway, guys, yeah, like I said, that's my story. The papers did mix and match a lot of what I said to make it more appealing to the viewers. So I do apologize for that, but hopefully you've all really enjoyed it. If you've got any more questions on this, please do comment below. It was an amazing experience, and it was certainly one that changed my mindset for the rest of my life. And I'll probably never get the answers unless I do some hypnotic regression, which I will be looking into in the future. If you guys have had an experience similar, it doesn't even have to be a green humanoid bipedal creature. It could just be any creature of any sort. I want to hear about it, because these things do exist. People are experiencing them, and we are all crazy. So please do comment below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and it's really important that you guys share these videos that I create to like-minded people. Share them in groups, share them in text messages to friends, family members, whoever it may be. Let's just get the word out there about the 401 files. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for listening and taking the time out of your day to spend it with me. Wherever you are in the world, stay safe, look after yourselves, and if you are in a position to do so, then please do look after somebody else as well. Thanks.